What up, dude bros? I'm Frank. This is another dart comparison video. So I'm gonna nerd out and get really into detail on the features of these darts and their performance attributes to let you know what are the best Nerf darts, quote, best Nerf darts to buy right now. Extremely time consuming to assemble this style of video, so hopefully it's helpful to some. So these are Nerf Elite darts. If you're a Nerfer, you probably know what these are. And they're pretty solid, but you can definitely get more accurate than these because, well, they're Nerf Elite darts. If you ever shot one, you probably realized right away, I didn't hit what I was shooting at. Blast, there must be a better way. And there is, or there are a lot of different better ways. This is the Nerf Elite Suction Cup dart, which is an improvement on the Nerf Elite dart, which is also made by Nerf. And with these, you get a slightly tighter group and just better consistency overall, so you have a better chance at hitting stuff. They recently released the AccuStrike darts, which I reviewed and compared to the existing darts, the Nerf Elite and Suction, and demonstrated the strengths of the Nerf AccuStrike darts. They group tighter, they shoot hard, they're fantastic darts, and I definitely recommend them. But in that video, I referenced some third-party options, so I'm here to compare the existing Nerf darts to other darts not made by Nerf. The AccuStrike darts shoot pretty well, but they're kind of expensive, and Nerf darts are always a little bit more expensive than some third-party alternatives. So the quest of this video is not necessarily to find a superior dart, but maybe one that shoots just as well, but much cheaper, which is just more reasonable, so you can load up and stash up and just fling foam for days without worrying about the money. Full table of contents with time markers, so you can click them and jump to that part of the video in the description. Already went over the Nerf darts. Now to the Koosh Gen 3 darts. These are sort of my go-to third-party ones for the time being. Similar dimensions as the Nerf Elite darts, and these have a little rubber head with these little prongs, which is a pretty cool texture. For my tests, I'm using these lime green ones, but they have different color options available. Next, darts I'm just gonna call the Chlorf darts. Don't know if I'm saying that correctly, don't really care. So long as I'm consistent within this video, no harm, no foul, right? I bought these on Amazon. They're very similar dimensions as their Nerf Elite darts, but the tips are designed pretty differently. The orange part here is not a hollow plastic like on a Nerf Elite dart. When you push on the Elite dart, you can compress it because it's hollow and filled with air. This feels like hard plastic, and when I shot myself with these and I had my Terra Scout shoot me with all of these darts, these stung a little bit more than the Nerf Elite darts and actually almost everything else. And that's because the tip does not compress. Now, pain's not a huge deal. We're not really playing with high-speed Nerf blasters or anything, but you can feel the difference, and you know, it takes away from the fun. I don't want to be flinching when I'm turning around a corner. I just want to, you know, think about flinging foam at my buddy. But those are Chlorf darts. For my tests, I'm using these red ones, but I think they also have different colors available. Links to these and everything as I label them in my video in the description. But the next one are the Amosting darts. These are actually very similar in design to the Chlorf darts. These ones are light gray. And when I say similar in design, they have a solid head and they hurt just as much as the Chlorf darts, which it's not like a dramatic amount of pain. It's not like I'm bleeding, you know, screaming out, "Medic, I need, you know, repairs." But there's a noticeable difference when you get hit by this, especially out of a higher power Nerf blaster. Those are Amosting in light gray, and they do have different colors available. Next are a few darts by eKind. Now that's the brand, and they have different options available, which actually perform differently. The first of which are the Nerf Elite dart style heads. And for this testing, I'm calling these eKind normal, and that's because Elite darts are kind of normal-ish, and the design there is just similar to the Elite dart head. It is a hollow head with a little hole in it, but it doesn't compress quite as much as the Nerf Elite dart. These hurt a tiny bit more, but honestly, the difference is marginal. The Chlorf and the Amosting still sting more. For my testing, I'm using these lime green ones. Again, different colors are available. Next, the same brand by eKind, and these are the Suction Cup darts. They look just like the Nerf Elite Suction Cup, and these feed through magazines with spring blasters and with flywheel blasters. And yeah, I herp-derped when I accidentally ordered blue ones because the Nerf Elite Suction are also blue. Whoops, that made testing tricky. Very similar dimensions to the Nerf Elite Suction Cup darts. Mine are blue, different colors available. Next, also made by eKind, are this kind of a goofy looking head here. For the sake of my testing, I'm calling these eKind AccuStrike style, and that's because the heads are designed kind of like AccuStrike. Actually, now that I'm looking at them side by side, not really, but you know, already edited that part of the video, so I'm not gonna change all those titles. These are white with yellow heads, and I think they also have different colors available. Those are the only third-party options that I'm actually comparing today. I also have a few other existing brand darts, just to see how they stack up to everything else. These are the X-Shot darts. I've reviewed a few of their blasters. Next are the Dart Zone darts. I like quite a few of their blasters. They're chain-fed, what's it called, the Scorpion, and the other one, Supah fun blasters. Lime green with blue heads. And then the Air Warriors darts. Now these are also Suction Cup darts, but they do feed through magazines. And a little note about these other existing ones that aren't really third-party, they aren't aftermarket, these are real companies, so I mean, they're different than Nerf, but hopefully you know what I'm saying. But these are not optimized for Nerf blasters, so it's kind of not fair to shoot these out of Nerf blasters, but I did, especially these X-Shot darts. They are quite a bit shorter than Nerf Elite darts, and I had a bunch of jams when I tried to feed this through my flywheel blasters, which was annoying. Worth noting, so it's not a super fair comparison, but I didn't want to change up a bunch of different blasters because that would just be, changing too many variables. I'm trying to isolate the darts. But if you saw these balls over here and you're like, okay, please tell me you're going to throw in the rival blasters, I did. So not really directly comparable to these options because they're just standard darts. I did compare a few other options that are on the market. The Nerf rival balls firing out of the rival Chaos because rival balls are fun, and it puts into perspective the groupings that I'm getting out of these darts. Also, Boomco. I can't say Boomco without saying Boomco, like all goofy like, just because Boomco blasters are weird, in a good way, but I'm also shooting the Boomco darts. Hopefully you know what I'm talking about there. Also Nerf Mega, just for the lels, these aren't accurate at all. And complete just out in left field because it's just not even fair, the worker darts. Shot these out of a blaster I didn't shoot anything else out of, like that's not really fair, but I just wanted to show these because they group really well. Overview, bam, done. Okay, now the test that I'm running on each of them. Yeah, I'm all official with my notebook out. First, I weighed them on a super sensitive scale, then I put them on a chronograph, then I shot them at my wall and drew a bunch of little pretty dots in post-production to illustrate their groupings. For the tests of the main darts that I'm testing, not the rival or the complete oddities, I'm testing with 3 different blasters, an unmodified Strife, a modified Strife, and a Springer, the Tri-Strike. That's to represent the different propulsion, and some darts perform really well at the stock velocities in a flywheel, but then when you ramp them up, they just go nuts. First up, weight. Now, I put 10 of each dart on the scale and then divided that answer by 10, and that's to eliminate my scale inconsistency just in case it's a little bit off, but also because darts weigh a little bit different from one to another. So these are just averages, but it's enough to kind of tell the difference between one and the other. Do you care about the weight? No, probably not, but I'll show you a cool graph. After the Chrono though. So the Chrono data I tested again with the spring, the flywheel, and the upgraded flywheel. Anything special come out of the testing data? No. The chronograph, it's all pretty consistent. Now if you're saying, okay, some of these shoot a little bit harder or softer, I wonder if there's a correlation between that and the weight. Yeah, there is. Generally, when you have the same propulsion mech, like the Tri-Strike, it has a fixed power output. When you have a heavier projectile and it's shooting with the same power input, it's going to have to go slower. Unless the aerodynamics are drastically changed, and that's not even going to affect it that much at a muzzle velocity. If I measured from 30 feet, the aerodynamics are going to be relevant, but right out of the muzzle, it doesn't have enough time to really slow down. But check out this pretty graph I made in Excel. It shows as you increase the weight of the dart, the initial velocity goes down, given the same blaster. I just realized I haven't really provided any information that's useful yet. So now to the groupings test, which is more or less the most important part, because, Chrono data, some people care, some people don't, whatever. And if it's not shooting fast enough, just mod your blaster to make it shoot harder, right? But groupings, you can't really mod the blaster to make it shoot tighter. Covered this before, so I'm not going to get super into detail, but tighter groupings are generally better. You don't want darts to go everywhere. You want a nice precise group so then you can actually hit your target. Ideally, you put your sights on somebody and the dart's going to go precisely where you're aiming so then you can actually hit people. Freaking hashtag sniper status. Even with something very consistent like the rival ball, it's not perfect, but the tighter the group, the better. Because of how long it took to test everything and to record everything properly, I could only test in this house and I could only get 20 or 22 feet away from my target, which is not very far away. Outdoor nerfers are probably thinking 22 feet, that's not going to represent anything at all, but for indoor nerfers, how often do you really engage beyond that? Like in my house, I can't. I mean, if I could engage at further range, I would for the sake of this test, but I can't. The further you go, the bigger change you're gonna see in really crappy darts and then Nerf rival balls that group really precisely. I've shown that in past groupings tests, but for this test, whatever, 22 feet, that's all I can do. If I go outside, I can't control wind and other variables. To eliminate some of the human error here, I did attach my laser pointer so you can see where I'm pointing the blaster. The test is not how close can the dart get to the laser dot, it's just showing where I'm pointing the barrel to prove that I'm pointing it at the same spot every time. I've spoken of this topic incorrectly in the past, so I want to just correct myself. Need to point out the difference between precision and accuracy. Accuracy is the group's tendency to hit the target or where you're actually aiming. At this target, it's a plus sign. Accuracy is how close the darts are getting to that center point. That is not being measured at all. What I care about is the precision. If I'm aiming right at the crosshair and I'm grouping way over here, completely off target, but all 10 balls or darts are right on top of each other, that's really precise. And as long as the dart is precise, as a shooter, you just get used to your blaster, so you aim a little bit over here, so then it's going to land on whatever you're aiming at. The accuracy is generally controlled by the human, where the precision is out of the blaster, which not really the case for Nerf. It's typically just the darts. So the laser is just indicating where I'm aiming, and I'm just trying to get the tightest group possible. And after I shot each of the 3 blasters, I corrected these groups to the center so you can accurately compare one blaster or one dart to another. Because if I have a pocket in the left corner, a pocket in the right corner, in the center, shooting out of 3 different blasters, it's not a bad dart necessarily. You just have to learn to shoot the same dart out of different blasters. So then you auto-correct and you kind of pull them all together, and that's a more accurate representation of that dart's precision. However, this is highly subjective, and me manually doing that on my computer, I didn't generate a heat map or calculate any mean. That's just my eye kind of putting it on the center. So it is subjective. I need to be clear about that, but I think it's helpful. For those that clicked on the video just for the groups, like 28 minutes later, here we go, the testing video. Yeah, so that took hours upon hours to compile. Most of you guys dig this stuff, but then there are a few who are just like, hey, no, I need more, I demand more, you're garbage. I do read all my comments, so they hurt my feels, all the feels in my heart. So I'm gonna give my opinion or reaction to these groups. First, the Nerf Elite Darts. LOL what? Like, that's probably the most consistently I've ever seen Nerf Elite Darts fire. I wanted to retest them just because I didn't think that's an accurate representation, but I didn't want to intentionally skew the data. That's what I tested, so that's what I have to record and show. But seriously, Nerf Elite Darts have never shot that consistently. I think they just had a little get together and like, hey, we're gonna F with Frank's data, so let's all hit the target. Next, Elite Suction. Pretty solid results, a little bit tighter than Nerf Elite, generally speaking, and I've reviewed that in the past. Occasionally you have flyers, but you have flyers with almost everything, even Nerf rival rounds sometimes. Next, AccuStrike. This is not representing the same collection that I had last time in my last test, and that's when I was running these tests, I only had 6 AccuStrike darts. Now I have a few more because I found them at Toys R Us, but I think I was starting to wear out the 6 AccuStrike darts that I had because I shot them a lot. And they aren't visibly worn out or anything, but you know, typically the foam gets a little bit more crinkled, you know, they've been shot, sometimes they bend and whatever. So the groupings weren't quite as tight, where everything else I was testing was brand new. Next, Kushjin 3 darts. These were pretty consistent, not as many like complete crazy flyers like way out in left field or anything, but not super tight groups. Next, the Chlorf darts. These had a few issues feeding in my flywheel blasters, and that's, I think, because the head doesn't flex because it's a hard plastic tip, which makes it sting, but it doesn't compress in the flywheel like the other darts. And the consistency was kind of whatever, like I could audibly hear it feed weird, and that dart typically went off and just did something random. Especially out of the modified one, there was some serious slippage going on because the, you know, slippage. Next, the Amosting darts. Now these have the same feeding issue as the Chlorf darts because they, I mean, side by side, if they were the same color, I would assume they have the same dart, honestly, but they had different results. A little bit of slippage up in there. To the Ekind normal, my notes only say blah, so yeah, blah. The Elite Suction, now these were kind of bipolar. These were funny because they were grouping really tightly, but then they're outliers because most darts shoot kind of weird every once in a while. They were just completely out in left field, like way far away from the rest of the group. So like 7 out of 10 were just like doof, 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 and then randomly, okay, that looked a little weird, but then randomly it would just be like, woo, complete miss, just way over here. Those were really unusual findings. Ekind, AccuStrike. Holy balls, these things are accurate. Fewer flyers or outliers, and even when they did, they weren't that big a deal. So yeah, super solid darts. X-Shot, Dart Zone, and Air Warriors, just blah. And like I said, they're not really optimized to feed through Nerf blasters. The flywheel blasters, I mean, these are short. The tips on the Air Warriors are different. These were designed by their manufacturer to work with their manufacturer's blasters, not the Nerf blasters. So it's not really that fair, but you know, going over the weird ones. Nerf Rival, oh yeah. Sniper status up in here, as we expected. Boomco, pretty solid, but everybody who's shot a Boomco blaster knows it's pretty consistent. It looks weird, and some people might think it's inaccurate because of the dramatic slope. They don't shoot at the same velocity, but the precision and the consistency is still there. Pretty solid. And then the Worker, These were great, actually, and that was freehand, no vise, no laser grip, because I didn't want to attach it. It was just for reference anyways, but that was by hand, and I was still getting really tight groups. And Mega, meh, just all of it. Mega, what are you even doing here? You're just goofy. You're not a performance dart. Who do you think you are? So a few specific overlays. When I overlay absolutely everything, you can't really see what's going on because they cover each other. Elite to suction kind of illustrates the funny groupings that I got out of the Elite Blaster, which I've never had before in my life, and I happened to just get it when I tested these. So whatever. And then comparing Elite to Koosh, and again, these Elite findings should be more spread out, but they're not. This is a representation of, you know, Koosh were kind of the go-to for quite some time, saying this is as pretty much as precise as a dart can get without spending too much like on suction cup darts. And then Elite compared to AccuStrike, because AccuStrike darts are solid, and again, these were kind of worn out, so this test's meh. But you can still see the AccuStrike darts are grouping more tightly. Now their overall range is about the same, but there's still a bigger hot spot in the center for the AccuStrike darts, saying more of them went to where you're aiming, and then there are fewer outliers, even though the overall range was about the same. And again, a heat map would have been perfect to illustrate this, but don't make me do stuff. Next, Elite versus the E-Kind AccuStrike style, the white ones with yellow heads. Now, oh snap, man, E-Kind AccuStrike, spoiler, these are the winners. Very few flyers, super tight groups, and they work in all of the blasters that I tested them in. And even off camera with other blasters, they're grouped tightly with everything, which is fantastic. Some of these darts were shooting pretty well, and then with springers, they were all over the place. Only with the flywheels, they were feeding well, you know, whatever. So if you want to be able to shoot any of your Nerf blasters accurately, those are solid. So what's the most precise thing you can get right now? Pretty much the Nerf Rival. So the new E-Kind AccuStrike style versus Rival. Rival, you can still see a noticeable difference, and the difference here would be much wider at like 80 or 90 feet. Again, this test was less than 25 feet, but it still shows how awesome these darts are. Even they're not complete Nerf Rival, but they're darts. So you get the tactical blasters instead of the Rival blasters, which are more like toy blasters instead of like guns. I don't know what made me say it like that. I need to stop making videos late at night. So, concluding the video, these are the darts I tested. I tested way more than this off camera. These are the ones that I wanted to like show on camera because they're sort of the common ones right now. People send me messages and comment about particular blasters all the time, and I've just been collecting those, and I've been testing them, and if something's so bad, I'm not even gonna mention it just because it takes more time. But out of these, I would definitely recommend the E-Kind AccuStrike style. Now, I don't think that's what they call them, but that's what I'm calling them. Link in the description box, and it'll be called E-Kind AccuStrike style. Available in different colors, cheaper than Nerf darts, and they group just really well. Whoops. Hopefully this video was helpful. I could have made a 6-minute video and it would have taken an hour to cut and upload just to say, hey, these darts are awesome, go buy them. But I wanted to show you why they're awesome with the chrono data and all of that stuff. This video took hours upon hours to compile, so hopefully it was helpful. It'll be quite some time until I make another one just because it takes so freaking long. And there are still going to be whiners like, no, you have to retest at 50. This is worthless. No, it didn't test this other XY dart, so worthless. Hey, you go make a freaking video. See how long it takes. I don't just go, hey, here's the dart and upload the video. I edit stuff. I'm already getting defensive and I'm talking about a hypothetical viewer instead of a real viewer. I think it's because it's winter and everybody not in Florida is getting all pissed off and depressed because they're cold and stuff, so they take all their anger out on my YouTube channel and on their little keyboards. They're like, you guys need to chill out, bro. Just chill out and get some sun. Come down to Florida. It's a super cold day today because it dropped below 70 degrees Fahrenheit. I'm rambling. That's the video. Hopefully it's helpful. Thanks so much for watching. If you have any questions or comments, leave them in the section below. If that's the video, thanks so much for watching, bros. As always, stay tactical.